Welcome, or welcome. Here, this is the To Infinite and Beyond podcast by and for people who love Marvel Snap. Today is December 2nd, a couple days before our upcoming patch. We got a little bit spoiled though, so I wanted to talk about what we're expecting in terms of new cards coming up and just kind of ranking them. So as you might notice, my partner Squash isn't here. He got a great opportunity on another podcast, so I'm really excited for him. In the meantime, I'll be your sole podcast host. I apologize for issues of quality in the meantime, but let's get started, right? So I just wanted to show you, just as an idea, that cards on the left of the card will be kind of core synergies or texts or any kind of meta discussions, while cards on the right are going to be whether it be spotlight variants or in this case for Sebastian Shaw being a season pass card. These are the other season pass cards, season pass variants, I should say. Um, and without further ado, I wanted to give Sebastian Shaw a 3-cost 4-power card, which says when this permanently gains power, gain 2 more power wherever this is. And I wanted to give him a 2 stars out of 5. Now you might be asking why. Why is because you have to consider that right now he has a lot of competition. Just to be a semi-playable 3-drop, you have to be a 3/5 with upside, right? At the minimum. You know, you look at Polaris, Spider-Man, and Sebastian Shaw has a lot of competition with something like Werewolf by Night. Because I was looking through all the cards that give power, permanent power, I should say. So Okoye, Nakia, Nova, Surfer, Forge, the Nico option that gives you power. All of these are on reveals, as you might notice, that also work with Werewolf. So I don't think it's necessarily an argument as to, oh man, he's worse than him, so he's unplayable. But it is worth keeping in mind that you're probably going to be running Werewolf in the same deck, and you're probably going to prefer drawing Werewolf than Sebastian. The only kind of upside that I saw with Sebastian is if you don't want to move, if you want that fourth board space, as well as the fact that you can kind of preload it with a Koye or something like a Forge effect as well, right? And so the kind of idea that I had with this card is that you kind of just put it into a Surfer shell where you have all these hand buffs that also synergize, right? So Dakin likes hand buffs. Werewolf by Night likes hand buffs and the fact that they're all on reveals, right? Sebastian Shaw likes them and Brood most of all, right? So you have your Surfer. Right now, some Surfer builds are already running Nakia. This is just an extra reason to. As well as Okoye, maybe this is her breaking point, and I kind of expect Okoye to be getting a buff sometime soon. But even if she doesn't, I think that this is the kind of home that she would see play if ever. Something you can also do is Nova plus Killmonger. That's something that's kind of died off recently, or not even recently, in the past few months in Surfer. But maybe you get a resurgence of it that, your Forge, your Dakin, your Sebastian Shaw all really like that Nova Killmonger package. So it could be something that's really good for Sebastian. I just think he's not really flexible. The only list that I see him being played is that Surfer list, and where he's not even the best 3-drop. I still think that Werewolf is better. But I will say that this buff does make him, because he used to be a 3/3, that buff to a 3/4 does make him a lot more appealing. But I still do just feel the fact that there's not really much flexibility, and he's not even the best card in Surfer, just lands me at a 2 out of 5 stars for him. Moving on, we go to Celine. She's a 1-cost -1 power that says on reveal, afflict the lowest power card in each player's hand with -3 power. And then she's going to be releasing with Black Knight and Iron Lad in the spotlight. And so I gotta say, I gave her 3 out of 5 stars. She's kind of the same as Sebastian in the fact that she's only going to go in Annihilus decks. But I do think that she does have a solid role as a nice filler for those kinds of decks right now. Annihilus, it's kind of you're only wanting to run Hood, Sentry, and maybe Debris as an Annihilus package, and you're kind of straying away from a full-on junk package. But maybe Selene is what kind of puts that over the tipping point, right? People haven't really wanted to be running Green Goblin, but Selene synergizes very well with both Green Goblin and Hobgoblin. Maybe this is some kind of Ravonna deck where you're wanting to do this. No, who knows? And I just think that it's a very nice target for Nihilus, and she has some synergies with junk decks. I don't see her in any other deck though, and so that kind of leads me to that 3 out of 5 stars. I am an I am an Annihilus believer, and so that's why gave her those 3 stars. But once again, kind of shoehorned into just one deck that she's viable in. Let's go into Havoc, and I should note that the image of the card is not updated. It got well, let me read the card. This says after each turn, you lose 1 max energy, and this gains +4 power. And so I wanted to note that Havoc has 0 power, not 1 power. So essentially, at the end of the turn, you're going to be getting a 2/4, right? And it's not even necessarily 2/4. It's not like an Electro where, you play this on 2 and the next turn you're at 2 energy and the next turn you're at 3. Right? This is if you play this on 2, then for the rest of the game you're capped at 2. And so that makes it a little bit hard to justify him. So that buff is objectively a buff, but I think that people are being kind of led astray in where you want to run him. People are talking about doing this with Viper, which makes no sense to me because not only are you investing all this energy into Havoc, you're giving them something that's going to be pretty large, right? If assuming that you give them a Havoc on 3, they're what? It's a 2, 4, 8, 12, 6. Wait, sorry, 4, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. That's a 20 power Havoc. So I don't think you really want to be investing a Viper to give that to them. Not to mention that you're also losing an energy yourself in that process if you go Havoc on 2 into Viper on 3. You could go Ravana on 2 into Havoc plus Viper, but I just don't think that's what you want to do. I think that's a terrible idea to actively give your opponent something that's going to give them energy, or not energy, power, right? But the only kind of place that I find a home for in Havoc is maybe a Surfer deck where you play this on 3 and then you just cap yourself to 3 for the rest of the game, but you don't mind it as much just because your deck is full of 3 drops. I'm not quite sure. Havoc has a lot of power, and he's going to scale pretty quickly, but at the same time you're hampering the rest of your game, and you have to kind of plan around that and keep that in mind. That maybe on turn 6 you're playing a 3 drop instead of a 6 drop, so you're playing a 3/5 instead of a 6/12. So you lost 7 power there. So even though Havoc gained 4, it doesn't add up. You know what I mean? So I don't see it. Maybe there's some kind of funky deck building where you're doing a Ravana shell, a Silver Surfer shell that doesn't mind it as much, and he's a powerhouse, but I don't believe in it. And I especially don't believe in these ideas of vibing it to your opponent. I don't understand why people think that's a good idea. All right, moving on. Here's the card that I'm most excited about is Blob. And so he's a 6/4 with on reveal, merge your deck into this and gain its total power. Ongoing, can't be moved. And so as you might notice, I gave him 5 stars, but there is an asterisk on that last star, and that's based on the interaction that's going to be happening with America Chavez and whether they rework Chavez before or once that patch hits in a couple days from now, to decide upon how I feel about Blob. Now, why am I saying that? It's because what you can do right now with Blob is you can Electro, Wave, any kind of mana cheat shenanigans to be able to play Blob on 5 in a ramp deck. And if you're playing this in ramp deck, not only do you not care about your turn 6, if you miss that draw on your turn 6, I should say, because Blob is going to delete your deck. Right, so if you have Chavez on the top of your deck, first off, you didn't care about that top deck for the most part, and you're a ramp deck. Your hand is probably going to have at least another 6 drop to not worry about losing that top deck, right? And so what you can do is you guarantee that Chavez on the top, as well as the 3 cards that are likely going to be left in your deck. So with that 9 plus the 4, you have a guaranteed 6/13 plus the power of the 3 cards that you have, and you're playing a ramp deck, right? So you might have some whiffs, you might have your Nebula, your Electro if you're playing a wave into Blob, right? But what you're able to do is it's essentially almost going to be a 6/18, a 6/20. It's going to be an infinite power level when you play it. And so there have been rumblings that the devs do want to rework America Chavez. And so if they do, then you lose a guaranteed 9 power. So you can still ramp into Blob, and that's still a powerful play, but you don't have a guaranteed big boy at the end that you can have in there, right? So you're more likely to whiff, is what I should say. Um, but I still think that Blob is going to be very powerful. He's just maybe not. He's going to be an infinite less of the time, is what I should say, right? And so there's also other avenues that you have for blob. You can fill your deck with things like a Tuma, so high power to cost ratios. A Tuma, Typhoid Mary, Red Skull, right? And so that's why I also mentioned Sauron, because a lot of people have been speculating, oh, this ongoing doesn't do too much. I think that there's a reason that they gave him that ongoing outside of flavor, and it's to limit him to not be able to work with Sauron. If you see the effect that Sauron has with Ebony Maw, so Ebony Maw, one of the effects is that he can't be played after turn three, and the other effect is that you can't play cards on him afterwards, right? And so only one of those is ongoing. But if you play Sauron, both of those effects get deleted. So the idea is that if you Sauron ahead of time, you're going to lose the entire on reveal of Blob. So it's just kind of I guess, a band-aid, so to speak. I assume that they didn't want Shuri Red Skull to be able to play Blob on six as another out if you don't get that Taskmaster. And so thank God, because I think Blob would have been insane in Shuri Red Skull. Your Red Skull, your Typhoid Mary, your Ebony Maw. There's so many good hits in that deck. So luckily, Blob isn't going to work in that. Now you can still run Blob in that deck, assuming that you haven't played Sauron, or if you're not playing a Sauron build, right? But luckily, they're not able to get that drain curve of Sauron, Shuri Red Skull into Blob that becomes 20 power because you just happen to have not drawn your Ebony Maw, right? But I do still think that this is going to be a really good card. It's going to be a powerhouse. But that 4 to 5 star range is going to depend based on that America Chavez angle, in my opinion. Now, this is the point of contention. I'm so sad about this. Firestar is gone. She was originally datamined to be releasing this month in December, and they recently changed that. So likely because I don't know if they had intentionally put it to where there was an extra card releasing on that first week of the season, to where you would get the season pass card and a spotlight card. They changed that, so also that gives us something to think about in January. They did the same thing, so maybe they're gonna be changing that data mine as well. I wonder what card they would be getting rid of, or maybe if they're just gonna move forward with that in the new year as a new card for the Battle Pass season. Who knows? But looking forward, Firestar is gone. Really bummed out about it. It was probably the card that I was most excited to be playing in December. But there's no more of that, and so I really am hoping that we can get Firestar pretty soon. And I don't think it was because of balance reasons. But who knows? Maybe she was too overpowered, and she didn't. They didn't want to release her how she was, because maybe at 6'2" she was unplayable. That at 6'3" she was overpowered. I hope that we can see her soon and they haven't changed her effect, because it's something really exciting to be able to look forward to. Now, looking forward, we have the Hellfire Gala event. It's just something quick that I wanted to talk over. Most of these variants are going to be releasing on December 11th as a one-day event. And so I personally, I think, well, I'm definitely getting the Blob, but that's not necessarily for the event. But outside of in terms of the shop ones that I could buy, I am considering Doctor Doom, but I'm not quite sure. I would love to hear opinions of people in the YouTube comments on which ones they want to get. Jean Grey is spectacular. The Moon Knight is super cool, but it's going to get absolutely ruined by a split when it goes to Prism. But I love that they made this art direction, and I'm loving that they're doing an event every month. Maybe this one isn't for me, but I'm sure that people are going to be buying every single one. Thanks for watching. Just some ideas for the next video is I want to do an emote tier list. Uh, they were showing some of them in that dev video, so hopefully I can get better images of them once that patch gets data mined, and I can do an emote tier list. It's something I'm really looking forward to. If you have any comments that you want to leave, put it in the comments. I'd really appreciate hearing your feedback. Like I said, trying to work on my audio, so if anyone has any recommendations on how to work a blue snowball on a Mac, I'd really appreciate that. Thanks for listening, and have a nice day.